Welcome to the Superbold podcast. I'm Fred Joyal, and I talk to my friends primarily, but also interesting people who have made bold moves in their life and had transitions where they missed opportunities as well. And they are great examples of how to chase your dreams. And I can think of few people better than my guest today who's done that. He's Alan Stein Jr. He's a high performance coach. Now, what that means is he's been an athletic coach, primarily a basketball coach, who's worked with some of the greats, Stephen Curry, Kobe, Kevin Durant, and he's transferred that knowledge. So now he's teaching businesses and individuals how to take these principles into their business, their day-to-day success, and really enhance everything that they do from these principles that are very powerful in terms of turning athletes into high performers. He also, one of the things I love about him is there's a university that has a quote of his inscribed on one of the gym walls in giant letters. I think few people can have that little super cool little thing done. I got to get that done somehow. I don't have the quote yet, but I'm working on it. But Alan and Alan is a great speaker too. I mean, that's how we met. We were both at an event speaking, and I thought, wow, this guy's got some knowledge that is really valuable, and he's just a terrific speaker. So, Alan, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, it's so great to be with you, Fred. And please know that feeling and sentiment is very mutual, my friend. I've learned so much from you over the years we've known each other, and I was excited to have this opportunity. I've been looking forward to it since we put it on the calendar.
So give me a moment in your life where you didn't feel confident, but you stepped up anyway. Can you think of a time when you said, no, I don't, maybe I don't belong here, or maybe I'm not worthy of this, but I'm going in anyway. Can you think of a time when you did that?
Well, boy, I got to really dust off the old archive to think of a specific time, but I can tell you unequivocally how many of those occurrences have happened over my life. You know, I'm 46 years old at present, and boy, I would say at least for the first 40 of those years, I was deeply scared and deeply insecure in many of the situations I found myself. And thankfully, there was something inside of me that still allowed me to step on the gas and to proceed anyway. And over time, I think that helped start to build confidence, the kind of mindset of just, kind of diving in and doing it. But yeah, I mean, there have been so many different times, whether as an athlete myself, as a basketball player, as a coach, or even as a keynote speaker, I've had those moments of hesitation. And what I've learned to do is kind of let those flow through me. What I've learned to do is to not get real self-critical in the moment, is to not stack shame and guilt on top of those feelings. I think hesitancy and self-doubt are part of the human condition, and I'm certainly not immune to them. So I've learned to embrace those feelings, but then trust that I've put in the work through the prep, in the unseen hours, and that I've properly prepared for whatever that will call for, and that things will be okay in the end.
What you just said, I think people should listen to that. Excuse me, that idea of just letting it flow through you. You won't be able to quiet the voices in your head, but you don't have to listen. You can say, yeah, I hear you. Yeah, probably not worthy, not good enough yet, but I'm going in. I'm going to do it anyway. And one of the things that people fear the most, obviously, is public speaking. And you decided to make that transition from being a coach to a speaker. Talk about those first few times when you said, I'm going to get on stage, I have a message, and I want to see if I can get it across. How did that feel?
Well, I think most self-doubt that we feel in any area stems from something that occurred in our past. And even if the past was a minor trauma that we had, decades ago, we often as human beings make the mistake of believing that whatever happened in the past is going to happen in the present, and that whatever happened in the past is an accurate description of what's going to happen in the future. And that's simply not the case. We have an opportunity to recreate the present moment every single opportunity that we have. Where I'll say I'm incredibly fortunate. The few times that I can think of being tasked with speaking in public, whether that was in elementary school or middle school or high school, I'm incredibly grateful that it went okay. It went well enough that it didn't scare me into that feeling.
You
Most
weren't
of
fully traumatized into never doing it again.
No,
Yes.
and that's why I think that actually led to a certain comfort level, almost a naivete, if you will, in leaping into being a professional speaker. Because to be honest with you, outside of spending time with my children, there's no place I'd rather be than be on stage in front of an engaged audience, sharing something that I'm passionate about. Now, keep in mind that there's a very narrow, set of guardrails of what it is that I feel that I have worthy of sharing. There's a whole list of topics that if you asked me to get up in front of an audience and present on those topics, I would be scared to death, because it's not material I know. It's not material that I'm passionate about. It's not material that I feel like I have something worthy to say. So keep in mind that the reason I'm so confident on stage is because I have the awareness to know what my lane is and where I believe I can offer some value. But I am very thankful that the first few times that I had to publicly speak, they went okay. Because when I talk to some colleagues and some folks that fear public speaking, they can usually trace it back to something that, maybe they raised their hand in third grade and said something and everyone in the class laughed at them and they felt emasculated. They felt embarrassed. They felt like they weren't good enough. And then that scared them. So then the next time they had to do that, in middle school, then the same thing happened. And then it starts to kind of snowball into this point where they're petrified of something based on these previous experiences. So when I look at other things in my life that I'm actually, a little bit fearful of, they usually stem back to a prior experience. And the part of the self-work I'm trying to do is learning to let go of those things and saying that happened then. That is not going to determine what's going to happen now, and learn how to surrender and relinquish control to that, which of course is very easy for me to say, is not easy for me to do.
For any of us. But this also goes back to your athletic experiences, because just like there are these traumatic moments or whatever that happen to people, they can certainly happen, particularly people who are just starting to get into sports. I was terrible at baseball because I wore glasses and I feared the ball hitting me in the face. Somehow I had this thing in my mind, and so I was never good at it because I could never get over this fear. So I got into other sports. But how do you help people to release those things in athletics? Because I think that's what people almost would expect from you, is like, tell me, how these athletes get through this, lost the game, but really emerging athletes. That's really what I want to talk about, because you coach a lot of younger people as they're coming up and learning a sport.
Well, the very first step is to earn your confidence through proper preparation. And something a mentor of mine taught me was to make your preparation your separation. So if you believe that you want to deserve the right to make that game-winning free throw in the basketball game, then you need to put in work during the unseen hours leading up to that and earn your confidence. I can tell you firsthand, a player like Stephen Curry, who's arguably the greatest shooter to ever play the game, has made so many shots during the unseen hours, in the empty gyms and the empty arenas when the lights aren't on. That helps fuel his confidence for when that moment arises. So it certainly starts with preparation. Piggybacking on top of that is also how we speak to ourselves. And I love what you said earlier, something to the effect of, we don't have to believe everything we think, that these voices are going to say things to us, but it doesn't mean we have to listen to it. We don't necessarily control the thoughts that we have, but we absolutely control the narrative to the way that we speak to ourselves. And when you can learn to speak to yourself in an encouraging way, in an empowering way, give yourself some compassion instead of constantly being critical and judgmental of yourself, that will also help in that preparation phase. And then when you find yourself in the moment, the best thing you can do is to be present in that moment. We've already covered that we have a tendency to look back over our shoulder in the past and get distracted by things that happened before and believe that those things are going to happen now. Well, we're also, as human beings, just as guilty as trying to predict the future and getting anxious over something that hasn't even happened yet. And one of the biggest mistakes people make, whether it's an athlete trying to make a free throw or somebody in business, is they focus on what they don't want to happen instead of focusing on what they do want to happen. And I know that as a former player. There were times where I would be on the free throw line and I could literally feel my hands shaking and my knees wobbling. And all I was thinking to myself was, don't miss, don't miss, don't miss. And instead, I'm thinking about what I don't want to happen instead of just taking a deep breath, saying, Alan, you have made hundreds of thousands of free throws in practice. Nice and easy over the front rim. You got this, buddy. And being able to change that way that I view that, it changes the actual outcome. So we have to realize that the future is always 100% hypothetical. We can't predict the future. We try to, because we try to give ourselves some security and some certainty to make ourselves feel better, but we can't predict the future. So when I'm at that free throw line, I cannot say with 100% certainty whether or not I'm going to make it. So if the future is going to be hypothetical, why not just hypothesize that things are going to work out in your favor? Like, why go to the negative side and assume that it's not going to work out and that I'm going to miss? Instead, I try to lean in and just assume that I'm going to make it because I've put in the work.
And yeah, I talk a lot about preparation in my book, Superbold, as the foundation for developing your boldness. But that this preparation is part of it is changing the voices instead of just having the critic in your voice and the negative possibilities playing. Have the coach playing, have the cheerleader playing. And it just made me think, imagine if cheerleaders were on the sidelines yelling, don't miss, don't miss. That would be some terrible cheerleading. Don't drop the ball, don't fumble. Like that, you'd have to that's not helpful, right? So
no, it's definitely not.
Be your own cheerleader right at that moment. Say, it's going in. You got it. You got this. Really, really powerful. But the other thing about preparation, and I think you've discovered this on stage as well as also in the game, is when you're really prepared, now you can be spontaneous. You can discover something in the moment. You can look at the audience and say, or somebody will ask you a question from the audience and you've got all this prepared material, but suddenly a whole new insight can come out to that audience because of the question somebody asked. And you said, I know exactly how to tell them how to think about this. And you may have never said that before or said it that way. Some of the best things I've ever come up with came out of my mouth on stage. I was like, that's it. That's how to say it. So that's the power of preparation. So important because you're going to need to tap into some level of confidence. If you're not confident about something, you got to be prepared. You got to learn how to relax too. You got to learn to breathe and realize that you can control your state. And that just takes practice too. That's almost part of the preparation, learning how to relax. But
absolutely.
So before I forget this, I want to talk about this because you have 3 kids, right?
Yep.
And what are you doing? I know that you want to instill confidence and boldness in them. So how are you approaching that with them?
Well, I approach it in a few different ways. One, I give my children the security of knowing that I love them unconditionally, that my love for them is not conditional upon the grades they get in school or how many points they score in a game or any performance metric, that I love them no matter what. I also let them know on a daily basis that I believe in them, that I believe they are capable of achieving great things if they're willing to earn those things. I let them know that nothing will be given to them, that they should be incredibly grateful that they have a roof over their head, they have clothes on their back, they have food to eat, they have their basic needs met. And I'm incredibly thankful that my ex-wife and I can provide those for our children. But outside of those things, I want them to know that everything in their life needs to be earned, and they earn it through basically what you and I have already been talking about, is through putting in the work during the unseen hours, is getting in repetitions, is focusing on the basics and the fundamentals, is making preparation their separation. So I don't only tell them that, I model that for them. I mean, for me as a parent, the biggest tool I have is the ability to model the type of behavior and traits that I would like to see my children emulate. So my kids know how much preparation and due diligence and rehearsal goes into one of my keynotes. Recently, I went to Las Vegas for a speaking engagement, and I brought my kids with me, partially so we could have a pseudo family vacation, but also partially I wanted them to see that side of it. I wanted them to see me go through my pre-speaking routine that day and do all of the things that I do when they're not with me that led to me being on stage, so that they could kind of connect the dots and see those things. So I make sure my kids know that I love them unconditionally, that I believe in them. I also let them know that I've got their back, and that, hey, you are going to hit some adversity. You're going to hit some challenges. You're going to have boyfriends and girlfriends break up with you. You're going to have times where you get cut from the team. You're going to have times where you fail the final exam. Those things are coming, but just know that you will have the strength to overcome those things, and that I've got your back all the way, and I make sure they know those things, so that way they can put their focus on working on their craft or working on whatever it is that they want to excel in. And they don't have to have one eye worried about any of the other things. Once their basic necessities are met, now they can have the opportunity to lean in and to be super bold.
That's so wonderful, because I think we're looking at a couple of generations now that have not been told that the only things worth doing are the hard things. That the only satisfaction comes when you find the outer limits of your capability and push beyond them. If everything is, if I love the term that's gone from helicopter parents to lawnmower parents. It's like they clear the path every inch of the way, so the child has no sense of adversity, and no self-esteem that comes from conquering it or comes from trying. I mean, you as an athletic coach, it's pretty easy to help to explain people is like, guess what? You will lose sometimes. Probably,
Absolutely.
if you're lucky, only half the time. And that's what champions are made from. They win a little bit more than they lose in the course of the season. So loss is coming. It's full of information about why you lost, and so that thing that you're giving them, that's like, try harder, and more will come, and it comes from the hard work, and also the hard work is its own satisfaction. You say, like, at the end of the day, wow, I kept throwing free throw shots until I was swishing and swishing and swishing. And it took me 3 years to get there. But looking now I go to the line and the other team's worried.
Absolutely.
They don't foul me because it's a bad idea.
Exactly. Well, when you were just saying that, I'm so glad we went in this direction. One of the other things that I do for my children that I hope they consider as a gift to them is I'm incredibly transparent with them. Like, I share my mistakes and my failures with them. And trust me, these things happen at a pretty rapid clip. Certainly, if it's a parenting mistake, if I say something to my children that maybe I could have said in a better way, I apologize to them and I let them know. I also let them know about, the trials and tribulations that I currently face, and that, because I don't want my children thinking that I'm batting 1,000, because I'm not. I set pretty lofty goals for myself, and I probably only accomplish, I don't know, maybe half of my goals. I fall short of plenty of goals. Now, I fall short knowing that I gave my best effort and I had my best attitude, but I didn't quite reach the goal. And then I need to try to re-engineer that and work backwards and figure out, okay, why did I fall short? What lesson can I learn from this? Where's the opportunity for growth from this? And I want my kids to know that. I want them to know that there are things that happen in my life that I get disappointed by, that I didn't get that speaking engagement and I'm a little disappointed. And the reason I want them to know that is because I want to show them how I process the disappointment and then move forward. And I let them know that it is okay to have these feelings. I tell my children all of the time, there is nothing wrong with you being angry, with you being upset, with you being disappointed, with you being frustrated. Those are normal human emotions. However, you cannot let them affect the way that you behave or the way that you treat people or the way that you show up. So when I don't get a speaking engagement, I let my kids know, man, that was a punch to my gut. I really wanted to get that. I didn't get it. And I'm going to be a little disappointed this evening, but tomorrow I'm going to wipe the slate clean. I'm going to move to the next play and I'm going to get back out there. And to me, modeling that type of grit and resilience is not only good for me in my own kind of therapeutic attempt to move forward, it's good to model for them. So I let them know that because I don't ever want them to think that, my dad has this all figured out, because little kids can tend to think that. Now, they'll get a little bit older and they'll think I don't know anything, and I'm ready for that stage.
That's coming, right?
Stage, yeah, it absolutely is. But the current stage, I let them know when I mess up, when I'm disappointed, when I fall short, that's all part of the process. And then I've learned to talk to myself with that same level of compassion. And that's probably been one of the biggest changes that I've made in recent years. If Fred, if you called me up one night and said, Alan, man, I had a really rough day today. This didn't go well. This didn't happen right. As your friend, the very first thing I do would be to lean in with some compassion and some empathy and try to support you, to encourage you and say, hey man, I know what it's like to have a tough day. I'm sorry today didn't work out the way that you'd like, but I know that you're strong enough to get past this. I know you're going to learn a lesson from this, and tomorrow is going to be your day, brother. I got your back. That would be the way that I would approach you as a friend. And I've had to learn how to talk to myself with that same level of compassion, because I used to be in the camp of piling on shame and guilt and judgment and criticism and beating myself up further when I would fall short of a goal or something didn't work out. And that left me feeling really, really lousy. So I've learned to talk to myself the same way I would talk to a good friend, or the same way I would talk to my children if they were struggling.
I love this key point that you allow yourself the reaction to be angry or upset or sad or disappointed. It's so important to know that's part of it. You don't have to suppress that, but it doesn't define what you do going forward. And that's the great shift for people, because a lot of people, they cling to it. This is one of the strange things about psychological trauma is it goes into us in our cellular storage the same way that physical trauma does, except we don't have physical trauma heals. Psychological trauma doesn't, unless you have a process for healing it, for releasing it, for moving on. And it's comes with, have the coach voice, have the cheerleader voice, have the insight. It's like, of course, mistakes are the pathway upward. And I love that you're teaching your kids that, because a lot of kids, when they have a really successful dad, they don't see how to get there, because it looks like dad's just king of the world, right? He's just everything he touches, people love him. Everything's working out all the time, and you're always confident, and they don't see the turmoil and the struggle and the disappointment that occurs, because maybe dad's not talking about it, or he's done a good job of, he doesn't want his kids to ever see it. He doesn't want anybody to see that. You're letting your kids see that. So they say, oh, I know dad's, human, he's not a god. And I know how to get there. I see this with really, really successful dads and their kids who have no idea how to succeed like their dad. The dad's a multi-millionaire, and they turn into drug addicts a lot of time, because they have no pathway. It just seems too far to get.
It sure does. And that's one of the changes I've made, because previously I was so riddled with fear and insecurity, and many times almost an imposter syndrome, that I would never allow myself to be vulnerable. And I would never acknowledge any of my missteps or mistakes, because to me, that was just confirming the fact that I wasn't good enough. Once I learned to surrender to that and to let go of all that, and now lean into the fact that I am flawed, I am fallible, I make mistakes, I fall short of my goals, I make boneheaded decisions occasionally, I say something stupid every now and I embrace that as part of my humanity. First of all, it's like taking a weight off of my shoulders. I no longer have this feeling like I need to be perfect. I threw perfection out the window years ago, thankfully, because I wasn't anywhere close to it. And I now just allow myself to be. And I just say, look, I'm going to go into everything and give the best effort that I'm capable of. I'm going to have the best attitude that I can. And I'm going to try to show up as my best self as consistently as possible. And even doing those three things, I'm going to fall short. There are going to be times that things don't work out in my favor. I don't get everything lined up in the world the way that I would like. And I'm going to learn from that and I'm going to move on. And once I started embracing those, not even just with my children, I try to show a level of vulnerability on stage. I let people know in the audience, look, I'm not speaking from a place of mastery. All of this stuff I'm sharing are still things that I struggle with and am challenged by. However, I've learned some great lessons and I've applied some principles that have put me on a path that I'm proud of, and I'm proud of the progress I've made. And that's what I wish for every audience that I'm with, is to get them on the right path and to be proud of their progress. But I never want anyone to leave one of my keynotes thinking, oh my gosh, I need to be perfect now. I can't make mistakes, because that will just stifle you. And I think the ability to be super bold is being able to move forward, even knowing that we're flawed and we're fallible and that we're capable of mistakes. So leaning into vulnerability and relinquishing that has just been life-changing. And it's deepened my connection with my children, and it's absolutely deepened my connection with my audiences. I know I don't like listening to a speaker that thinks they're a guru and thinks they have everything figured out, because to me, there's a slight bit of mistrust. I love when someone says, look, I've accomplished some great things, I've worked with some great people, but boy, I still struggle as well. I know that person's human, and that's who I want to connect with, is other humans. So that's who I try to be, both on stage and with my kiddos.
When I'm teaching super boldness, people say, well, like, are you at this level where you just feel confident all the time and it's always working for you? And I say, no, I know how much bolder I can be myself. I'll walk over to somebody I really wanted to meet, like somebody iconic in my mind, and I'll have a great little conversation, and then I'll break away. And as I walk away, I said, Fred, what the hell are you leaving for? They weren't saying, let's wrap this up, I want to talk to other people. But I was like, I had such a win. I talked to them for a few minutes. I'm gonna get away before it goes bad, or whatever, before they become bored. And I realized, wow, I could have just stayed in the moment and gone to another level. Because I've done that with people surprisingly very quickly. People start to, if they see you're genuinely curious about them and you have no agenda for, like, will you endorse my business or help me raise money or something like that, they start to, the human side of them will come out as well. And so I'm on a pathway to greater and greater boldness. There's a humility that comes with becoming better and better as you see where else you can go, and it keeps you from being egotistical, because you say, yeah, you think I look pretty good, but I know the 5 things I need to work on really hard right now.
Oh, absolutely. I'm so glad that you acknowledge that and admit that. I feel the exact same way. The funny thing is, when I look back at myself in my 20s and 30s, I hit almost 100% of my goals. The reason? I wasn't bold. I was aiming so low. I didn't set very aspirational goals. I set goals that I already knew that I'd be able to sleepwalk and achieve, because I was so petrified of falling short. Because I considered not reaching a goal meaning I was a failure, and I wanted to avoid that at any cost. So one of the other areas that I'm really trying to rewire my life, and why your work and your book and everything you do has been so impactful, is I'm trying to be so much bolder and think bigger and dream bigger in everything that I do. I acknowledge that for most of my life, I've played it safe out of fear of being a failure and coming up short. And I thought, well, I hit almost every goal, I must be doing great. Yeah, but I'm setting the bar so low that there's really nothing to take a bow for. So now I'm actually proud of the fact that I don't hit all of my goals because it lets me know that I'm stretching and that I'm really trying to be bold and force growth. So yeah, and I hoping to even widen that gap. Like I'd be great if I only accomplished 20% of my goals because that would mean I am so bold that 80% of the time I'm reaching for something that might be unreachable at the moment, but it doesn't knock the smile off my face. And it certainly doesn't shake my confidence or deter my optimism. That's the place that I'm trying to get. So I'm so glad that you mentioned that because that's been really impactful to me.
Well, and you've recently done something really stupid, which is not acknowledging how old you are. And you did the whole Navy SEALs training thing, the 26-hour challenge or whatever. So I need to hear about that and what compelled you to be so foolish.
Well, one of the things that compels me to be foolish is part of my life's philosophy is I like having something on my calendar that I can not only look forward to, but something to actually train for. I mean, for me at 46, since I'm not technically a competitive athlete anymore, I don't play on a team and I don't have a jersey. I need something that I have to train for physically. And so every 2 to 3 months, I like to have something on my calendar. Just in the past couple of years, I've done a Spartan race. I've hiked from rim to rim in the Grand Canyon. I've done an ultra marathon. Like I just like to have something to shoot for. So about 6 months ago, I found this Navy SEAL training experience, and I wanted to give that a try. I knew that it would be different than anything I've ever done. It would require a different type of training. And I knew that it would really take me out of my comfort zone. I mean, you know me well enough, and certainly, I guess if folks can see on the camera, I'm kind of a clean cut, pretty boy, if you will. So rolling around in the mud and the sand is not my thing, and that's the reason that I did it was because it's not my thing. I mean, I'm more of a lay by the pool Ritz Carlton kind of guy, not a lay face down in the mud crawling through the bushes type of guy. So that's why I leaned into it. And it was an unbelievable experience. I got to push myself physically, mentally, and emotionally. I got to meet some really great people that I am convinced will be friends for many years, just like you and I are. And it really strengthened my respect and my reverence, specifically for Navy SEALs and what they go through. Because what we did in 26 hours was a heavily watered down version of what they go through. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't for 1 second pretend that I could do what real Navy SEALs do. So it was also it was a great humble check. Like it humbled me to realize that I just did something really hard. And that's not even a fraction of what those guys actually have gone through. So it gave me a much stronger appreciation for that. So that's why I signed up for something like that was for all of those reasons.
So it was 26 hours, right? Or something like that. And no sleep in, did you
We
get a
got a
nap?
little
Did
bit
you?
of sleep. Yeah, and that's why I say heavily watered down. I mean, they have to
Yeah.
realize they're taking a group of civilians from the corporate world. So yeah, we were given a few hours sleep, but the cool part, at 3:30 in the morning when everybody's dead asleep, they come in with their air horns and their ACDC blasting and banging on trash cans, and they had their headlamps on, and they woke us up. So the day started earlier than most people. But no, they were great. We got fed. We were allowed to take one shower in that time, and we did get a little bit of sleep. So yeah, like I said, I'm far from being a Navy SEAL.
Yeah. What those guys go through is it. I mean, they thin out. It's the percentage of people that don't finish the Navy SEAL training, and those guys are some seriously in shape dudes. I forget what somebody was telling me that the the number one reason somebody drops out is because they think they can do it alone. They
Uh,
don't. They don't. They don't join. They don't help out, and they don't call for help in the process of the training. And that's also what they're trying to figure out: is this guy? Does he think he's the loner who's superhuman?
Well, you
Um,
you just nailed it right there, Fred. So this is what I found really interesting. So the guy's name was Commander Mark McGinnis, and he's a 27-year Navy vet, like decorated, unbelievable guy. Has been deployed several times. I mean, he's really protected the freedoms that you and I get to enjoy. And he said intentionally. Now they recruit, like you said. I mean, they recruit some badasses to go through Bud's training, and they only about 10% of people make it to the end, which means 90% of these guys who are mentally, physically, and emotionally tough don't have what it takes to be a Navy SEAL. And he said that that's actually the cap that they're looking for. He said if all of a sudden we start to see more than 10% of people make it through, then we're going to have to raise the bar even higher, because we don't want that many people going through. And he said, to your point, and this, I'm so glad you brought this up. He said there's basically 3 people that I can guarantee you will not make it through Bud's training. The first is the person that already thinks they're a badass and thinks, this isn't going to be that bad, I've got this, because they're going to be rudely awakened. Second is the person that lacks any confidence or boldness and goes, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. 90% of people fail. I just don't believe I can do it. So those 2 people are already, there's no way they have a shot. And then the third is what you just mentioned, is someone that attempts to be the lone wolf and says, yeah, I can do this by myself, which is impossible, because the entire point of their type of training is to teach teamwork and cohesion and leadership. And of course, as you know, part of being a great leader is also knowing how to be a good follower. Part of being able to give instruction is learning how to take instruction. So if you're not willing to play nice with those around you, and you're not willing to have the back of the guy next to you, then there's no way you'll make it through. So those are definitely the people that would have trouble with that. And that was very apparent when we first started. So there were so many lessons that could be pulled from that. So yeah, I'm glad that I signed up and did that, because there'll be things I'll carry with me for the rest of my life.
Yeah, it sounds fantastic, and I may be foolish enough to do it myself. But the other thing that you pointed out is it's a very important thing to say, to set these things, these challenges, with a hard date, because I got, that's what my personal coach, because I finally did the Superbold workshop. I did the first one about a month ago. And my coach, he said, what's the boldest thing you could be doing? He said this to me in March, I think. And I said, well, that would be launching the workshop, because I've been doing all this other stuff to promote the book. And he said, okay, when? And I said, well, it takes, he says, all right, how long does it take to prepare the workshop? And I said, 90 days. He said, okay, what's 90 days from now? And so we looked at the calendar, picked the date, and I had to prepare 2 days of material. I had to prepare all the elements that in my mind I wanted to do, but now I had to solidify all of those and fill the course, find the location, print all the stuff I wanted, the pop-ups, get a projector and a screen together and build, 300 slides that I built and videos, and recruit 3 people to come in as guest speakers. And I had a friend of mine who was a stand-up comedian came in, and he put people through open mic. Wow. And it was, and he was such a good teacher. I really didn't even know this about him, but he really put them, everybody got up and told a story, a funny story, and he just helped them refine it. But they were on stage. The experience of being on stage was so transformative for them. But it was all because it was, it was scheduled for June 12th. I had to be ready. So I couldn't say, well, I'll get it together in the week before. Because what happens is 20 other things show up the week before that you have to do, and you have no time to prepare. So we're circling all the way back to preparation again, but put these things in people. If you want to be bolder, you gotta set these things that you gotta aim for, and you got no way out. You've burned the boat in the harbor. You've let the door lock behind you, and you got to figure out what to do, because you made a commitment. You set it up. Very powerful for those things to happen in your life. And as you say, it's very easy to get addicted to comfort. And this SEAL thing was not a study in comfort.
No, it wasn't. You know what you just said there, this is so powerful, and this will end up being my big takeaway. All of these events that I sign up for, obviously they have a date. Here is the date of the Spartan race. here's the date of the ultra marathon, here's the date of the Navy SEAL training. And that forces me to be prepared and ready to show up that day. But what just jogs my memory when you said something else I have on a list of things that I want to do is to do an open mic night at one of the local comedy clubs here in the DC area. It's, I have no aspirations of being a professional comedian, but I've always had a strong respect and reverence and loved stand-up comedy. And it's always something that I've wanted to challenge myself with. Not that I'm not challenged by my keynotes and my workshops, but stepping outside of what I'm used to doing when I have a microphone and doing something completely different will challenge me. And it just dawned on me that I've been spinning my wheels for the last few months, and I've been writing down some material. I've actually gone and scouted out a few of the open mic nights, but I haven't actually promised myself or set a date. I haven't said, I am going to do the open mic on this date, and it's going to force me to do it. And that's the super bold move I'm going to make when we're finished this call, is I'm going to find a date and say, I'm going to do this, and I will be prepared to do it. And it'll be amazing how just solidifying the date and making a commitment with intention to that I'll get my initial material in gear and I'll rehearse it. And I'm certainly not going to be offered a Netflix special after my first open mic, but I'll be more prepared to do the best I'm capable of once I set that date. And that's going to be something I do. And I'll probably set that date, for like early September. Give me 1 month to try and prepare some material and get it ready. And I'm going to make that commitment to you and to your listeners that by early September, I'm going to do an open mic night.
Now, the other thing that happens when you set the date and you have to prepare is, even when you're not actively working on it, you're subconsciously working on it. You'll be cooking dinner, you'll be chopping vegetables, and you'll go, wait a minute, there's a bit totally out of left field from something you remember from somewhere, and you'll say, no, there's a story here, there's a funny little thing that I can tell. Your brain, once your brain says, all right, because the brain's lazy, the brain's looking for the easiest way out, trying to conserve calories. And so, but once you commit, the brain goes, oh crap, I guess we have to do this, so I'll work on it while he's doing other stuff. And it's amazing the things that I came up in the workshop, because I started preparing early. I said, look, I don't want to get wedged into this workshop. This is the first one I've done, and it's 2 days. I want to make sure I've got enough content. Because I had started preparing early, all these little pieces started showing up. One of the things that happened is the week before, I'm at a party for a friend of mine, a fundraiser, and this woman comes in, young woman. She's in unbelievable shape. And she turns out she's a rock climber, volleyball player. So, and she's a free climber. And so I said, would you be willing to come in and just talk for 20 or 30 minutes about how you conquer the fear of doing this and how you discipline and prepare yourself? And so and she went, oh, absolutely. And she just wowed them. One, because you just look at her and go like, how could anybody be in this kind of shape?
Yeah.
I mean, she showed it off. She had a bare midriff thing on with her six pack showing and everything, and, bare arms and stuff. But she was just a very gentle person. And she just says, part of it is, you have to concentrate on the wall, and there's nothing else to think about except what I'm gripping, and can I reach that and leverage that? And she said, because of it, you want to be in shape all the time. And so you do everything you can to strengthen yourself, and you never do anything toxic to yourself. And it was really wonderful. But I just found her just because the workshop was always in my head. So you got a new book, and I want to talk about that, because you wrote Raise Your Game. What is that? 5 years?
No, it's 2019. So it's been three years now.
3 years with Raise Your Game, which is, I highly recommend to everyone. But now you've got Sustain Your Game. So what inspired you to take that next message out? What's the core of the message, and what prompted that?
Well, very similar to a lot of the themes that we've been talking about is I always want to write the book that's mirroring what it is I'm going through in my own life, which means in essence, I'm writing the book that I need to read myself. I find it very therapeutic and empowering to write and research about the very things that I need to improve. So when I left the basketball training space and entered into the corporate keynote speaking space, where I had no name recognition, no brand credibility, I've never worked a corporate job in my entire life. I wanted to try to unpack, all right, what are the things I need to do to reach optimal performance as a speaker? And I wanted to draw on the lessons that I had learned from the game. So I basically wrote Raise Your Game as a way for me to optimize my own performance. Now, I'll always be on the climb. I'm certainly not saying that I've reached that proverbial mountaintop. However, it did become clear to me that there is a difference between the climb and reaching the proverbial mountaintop and sustaining high levels of performance and excellence for long periods of time while still feeling some fulfillment. And I realized that three things that undermine our ability to sustain excellence and fulfillment are stress, stagnation, and burnout. Three things that I knew intimately and had experienced intimately. So that was the reason for writing it. And I think, like many people, those three things were heightened exponentially during the pandemic, or at least during the heart of the pandemic, where people were feeling stress at unbefore-seen levels. People felt like they were just treading water and stagnating. And I know a whole huge portion of the corporate world in particular that reached points of burnout when the world was disrupted so much. So I thought this was the perfect time for me to address the areas that I need to work on. And then, of course, even though I'm doing it to help myself, I'm doing it in service of others, because I always know that whatever I'm experiencing, I'm not alone. If I'm feeling stressed, there is a few other people out there, considering we have 8 billion people on the planet, that are also feeling stressed. So I write my books in full service of others, but I do them for the therapeutic nature of
Yeah,
myself.
there's a self-instruction manual that other people benefit from.
Exactly. Well said.
Yeah, and I see that too. I see that in some people who are, they peak earlier in life. That's, I always said, one of the worst things that can happen to you is you peak early. Like in high school is even worse, because
Oh, yeah.
it's so wrapped in emotion being in high school and being a star in high school. You can never find that again, because it's all mixed with all the hormones and everything and all the insecurity that everybody's experiencing. And the number of young successful athletes that I knew that work at gas stations now or whatever, it's like
Yeah.
they're living in the glory days, and they're 33. And you say, that's, wow, you had no way to sustain this for yourself, because it was too intense for you, and there was nobody to say this is what's going to happen. And so,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Well,
I love this. And so, how, I'm sure you tell people, and this happens in the, look at these people who make, $100 million selling their company, and they're 29.
yeah.
They don't know what to do at that point,
Oh, no.
So
Well, one of the things I like best about any conversation that you and I have, and first of all, there's nothing wrong with having some decent memories of the past. I mean, I one of my favorite parts of Facebook is that time hop that says, something that I posted 7 years ago to the day, and I like taking just a moment to reflect back on that day or that experience. But one of the things I value most about any time I connect with you is we're always talking about either what we have going on now or something we're excited about in the future. We don't spend a lot of time talking about the glory days of the past. And I try not to spend much time with people who believe their best years are behind them. I've lived a great life, and I am so thankful for all of the people and experiences that I've had, and I've had some wonderful ones. But I have the optimism to believe I haven't lived my best life yet, or my best years yet. Like, my
yeah,
best days are still in front of me. And for that, I'm incredibly excited. So I try not to spend time with people that are always looking backwards, talking about the good old days. Instead, I try to invest my time with people like you that are focused on the present or excited about something that could potentially happen in the future. That's the direction at which I want to live.
yeah, I want, when people ask me what's the best year of your life so far, I want the answer to be this one.
Absolutely.
But I think next year probably is going to be better. uh,
Yeah, and every year we can top it, and I love having
yeah.
that type of optimism.
Yeah, and it's not just about success. It's about love. It's like with your kids, it's like you're becoming a better father every year for your kids, and watching that be absorbed by them. That's a huge goal. So a lot of times when I talk to people, they say, well, what I don't have these big dreams. I don't want to change the world or cure cancer or solve the plastics problem in the ocean or something like. It's like, no, just be the best dad you possibly can be. Be the best friend. Be the best coworker. Create the best business. Be the best boss. That's a huge dream, and it's a lifelong challenge of getting better. So that's what boldness is knowing that you can be better, and boldly taking the feedback and criticism and input to get better. So
Absolutely.
that's what it's about, and that's what I think when people are sustaining their game, learning from you, it's the game of life that they're learning to sustain. The true fulfillment, the joy, the satisfaction, the love, the enriching experiences that you share with others, that you offer to others, the impact that you have. That's the game to sustain.
Most certainly. Boy, that's a mic drop moment right there. You said it brilliantly.
So then we're going to stop. So so if you want Alan to be a keynote speaker, which I can't imagine why you wouldn't want that, so go to his website, alansteinjr.com, find out how to book him, and create some real impact for your people. Have them read the books, get the books yourself. You got Raise Your Game, you got Sustain Your Game, people. These are on Amazon. Uh, get them. And I'm going to put in the show notes how you can find all of that stuff. But Alan, it's always a rich experience, and there's always so much more ground we could cover. But I think we gave a lot of juicy stuff for people, and I so appreciate our friendship and your sharing of your life experiences.
That feeling's so mutual, man. This was a lot of fun. I look forward to connecting again with you very soon.
All right. Thank you. And everybody else, share the show if you like it, and keep on becoming bolder.